let's start the session. I would like to invite our HR head, GNL, GT Rai sir, to welcome address.
Good afternoon, all. Welcome to all the dignitaries, esteemed speakers, industry leaders, policymakers, academicians, and participants. India has set an ambitious target for achieving 500 gigawatt of non-fossil fuel capacity by 2030, and Gujarat is proud to contribute nearly 100 gigawatt to this national vision. With our 42 gigawatt of installed renewable capacity, Gujarat stands as a national leader in solar, wind, and hybrid projects. As we move rapidly towards these goals, the focus of our energy transition is evolving from capacity addition to intelligent integration, grid flexibility, and system resilience. In this context, it is my privilege to welcome you to this session on smart, renewable energy transition and stadial solutions through AI and ML, the need of the hour. Organized as a part of Vibrant Gujarat Regional Conference here at Rajkot. Gujarat has long been at the forefront of India's renewable energy journey with visionary leadership. Looking at some Gujarat Keys initiatives, GeoUrja provides a comprehensive digital mapping of Gujarat's entire power network and assets, enabling data-driven planning and informed decision making. Akshay Urja Setu has been built on this foundation by providing insight into feasible renewable capacity and geotech substation on map of Gujarat, supporting transparent and coordinated approval processes. Urja Samvardhan focuses on area and district-wise future load forecasting and identifies new substation requirements by 2030. To guide systematic network strengthening, together, these initiatives reinforce Gujarat's power system reliability and accelerate renewable energy integration through scientific planning and digital transformation. Under the Government of India's India Energy Stack initiative, Gujarat has emerged as one of the key participating states driving its implementation. Through above initiatives, Gujarat is contributing proven digital framework that can be scaled and adopted across the country. However, as renewable penetration increases, we are now entering a new phase where the challenge is no longer generation alone, but how intelligently, reliably, and economically we integrate renewable energy into our power systems. Variability of renewable sources, grid stability, concerns peak demand mismatch, and curtailment are realities we must address now. In this context, artificial intelligence and machine learning combined with stadial or multiplier energy storage solutions offer a transformative pathway enabling predictive planning and real-time optimization and resilient grid operations. Today's session aims to bring together diverse perspectives from utilities, regulators, technology providers, researchers, and industry to discuss practical solutions, share global and Indian experiences, and identify actionable steps tailored to Gujarat's unique energy demand and landscape. I am confident that the deliberations today will not only enrich our understanding but also contribute meaningfully towards shaping a smarter role, more flexible and future ready power system of Gujarat for the nation. Once again, I extend a warm welcome to all of you and wish this session a great success. Thank you. May I request Mr. Neeraj Karia to proceed for the felicitation.
Yes. Yes. Very good afternoon to dignitaries, participant, audience, and everyone. We now move to a very significant and timely segment of today's program. It is my privilege to introduce our esteemed moderators and distinguished panelists. For this session, we collectively bring a rich perspective from policy, academia, industry, consulting, and the startup ecosystem. As a token of our appreciation, we would like to felicitate our moderator and panelist with a memento. To lead today's discussion, we have Ms. Swetha Ravi Kumar, Executive Director at FSR Global. She brings deep expertise in energy transition, sustainable strategy, and global renewable energy integration framework. May I request Sri Darshan Kaku to kindly present a memento to Ms. Swetha Ravi Kumar. Ma'am, please. Thank you, ma'am. Joining her is an eminent panel of experts whose diverse and complementary perspective enrich today's discussion. Now, Dr. Chirag Thakur, Professor and Head, Computer Engineering Department, LD, College of Engineering, who brings valuable academic and infrastructure planning insights, and particularly in area of grid readiness and long-term system resilience. May I request Sri Monik Chawda to present memento to Dr. Chirag Thakur. Thank you, sir. Sri Gautam Kumar, Chief Strategic Officer, IntelliSmart Infrastructure Private Limited, who contributes a strong utility scale and field level perspective of smart metering, digital infrastructure, and data driven decision making in power distribution. May I request Ms. Sweta Gohel to present a memento to Sri Gautam Kumar. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Sri Joydeep Sinha, Senior Technology and Domain Expert at TCS, who will share insight on enterprise scale digital transformation, AI/ML adoption, and platform driven innovation for power utilities. May I request Sri Paresh Notani to present a memento to Sri Joydeep Sinha. Thank you, sir. Sri Rudhi Pradhan, Lead Manager, Strategic Consulting, Accenture India, who brings strategic consulting and lens on how DISCOM and power utility can scale innovations while effectively managing operation and regulatory complexities. May I request Sri Pratik Patel to present the memento to Sri Rudhi Pradhan. Thank you, sir. Dr. Hitesri Srasti, co-founder and Chief Technology Officer, RU Vision Venture Private Limited, who represent the startup and deep tech ecosystem with strong expertise in AI and advanced analytics applied to energy and infrastructure sectors. May I request Sri Keyur Buch to present memento to Dr. Hitesri Sastri. Thank you, ma'am. Together, this panel represents the entire value chain from policy and planning to technology, execution, and innovation. We look forward to stimulate an insightful discussion on how AI and energy sector to storage digital intelligence and enable resilience, scalable, and sustainable power ecosystem. With this, I now invite Ms. Sweta Ravi Kumar to kindly take a discussion forward. Thank you, ma'am. Please come.
A very good afternoon to everyone. Can you hear me well? Did we all have lunch? Some coffee? I don't want anybody falling asleep, so challenge us as well. So we try and make the discussion as interesting as possible. Before we start the panel discussion, what I would like to run you through is how the government is leading transformation from the forefront. So I'm going to run you through what the government of India is doing at the national level, as well as what the government of Gujarat is leading at the state level, so that you see that it's coming in both top down and bottom up, and that's the kind of energy we need when we want to solve for energy transition and the problems that we bring with it. So how many of you have heard of India Energy Stack as a topic, project? I see only 3-4 hands. Okay, except my panelists, nobody else, looks like. Let me brief you about what this is. I'm assuming all of you are people working in the power sector, energy sector. Raise of hands. All of you. Okay, when you need to do research, what's the one thing that you need? Besides your research questions, of course. Data. Do we get data easily? Gujarat is still better, huh? You still get data in Gujarat. But if you want to do meaningful research, you need reliable data. That's pretty much the crux of what India Energy Stack plans to do. It's also born by a bunch of us frustrated with data not being available. And we said, let's see how to solve it. So this is a flagship event, flagship program of the Ministry of Power, which is trying to bring in India Energy Stack as a digital public infrastructure. What does this do? What does the DPI mean? It means I'm trying to create a solution that is in small building blocks that can be taken, plugged and played by any of us. So it's not like a big IT solution or a digital solution that is being provided, but rather an enabling field for all of us to take and use. So what does the India Energy Stack intend to do? It intends to build interoperability within the power sector. That means you and I, or we with our distribution utility, or our distribution utility with our system operators, whoever are the actors interacting with the grid, we can exchange data in a secure and safe way, making sure that at the system level, we're able to improve reliability and as a consequence also affordability. So and by making data at the heart of every solution building, we're also enabling a lot of choice, not just for consumers, but for across. So you're opening up the data. This is essentially building the digital backbone for the power sector. The mission is about how we will do it. I'll touch upon it in a bit. So what India Energy Stack is it identifies who I am. When I say Shweta, you know me because I'm saying who I am, but you don't know whether I'm really me or not, unless you verify. What do we do to verify humans in this country? Aadhaar, exactly. It tells me whether I am me or no. Likewise, in the power sector also we need identity. We need to connect those stakeholders. I need to be able to facilitate data exchange. And how I do that? By prescribing uniform specifications and standards So when I say A, you say A, we are talking the same A. It's not some Greek letter and I'm talking in Latin. That's the idea. So that we unlock transparency, reliability, and all of the benefits that come with it across the power sector. So IES is nothing but a suite of protocols and specifications to enable interoperability. And how we do that? By specifying APIs and the taxonomies that come with it. So APIs, schemas, and data models is how it will help me exchange information with you in a standard way. So when we go and fill our Aadhaar form, all of us are filling the same form. It's not different forms across the country. Likewise in the power sector as well. What IES is not, is it's not a central database. So it's not like you'll go to one portal and you'll find all the numbers there. No, data stays with whoever generates. Even as consumers, what we generate, we keep. Based on consent and based on whatever data governance laws are there, we will then share information with each other. It's not a software product. It's not based on strict hierarchy because we're getting into a digital era where anyone can talk to anybody. You can control this fan, you can control this air condition if the room had. We are now enabling choice and controllability at such a minute level. So we all can become from passive consumers to active consumers participating in as big as the energy market. That's the revolution that's coming. And we are creating the framework to enable for that. So how does this impact any of us? Show of hands, how many of you from the utility side? How many of you from the grid side, grid operators? Industry? Students? A lot of you, yes. Okay, you will be learning a lot of how this magic happens. So what do grid operators read? Who are grid operators? They basically are like the traffic cops ensuring that traffic flows. That means they need visibility of what's happening. Only then they can operate the grid. So they get data at real time and visible. The more EVs and the more PVs that get into the grid, the more I need to be able to see it so that I can make sure the flow of electricity in the grid is without collapsing the grid, in simplest of words. Utilities, I can plan better. You saw the opening remarks mention about grid reliability many a times. That means as the utility, I need to be able to predict how you will behave, plan for it, and make sure that with the grid operator, I ensure that the grid doesn't collapse. It's a physics magic that happens at every 15 minutes, so not to take lightly the exercise that happens. Policymakers and regulators, of course, make sure all of us are treated fairly and ensure the prices that we pay are as reasonable as it can be. But they need data too to make decisions. Otherwise, they can just put some random number. How many of you would be willing to pay 1 unit at 100 rupees? Nobody, right? So that's why you need some numbers to give them to also be able to make those decisions. It has to be fair to all of us. As consumers, as I said, all of us have smartphones. All of us are on Instagram, Google, everything. So you're getting nudges everywhere. Energy will be no more different. We will all be able to participate through our smartphones, controlling devices or assets that we own. Or if you are smart enough and you're an aggregator, you can say, I'll pull up a few and operate it. But there's avenues for all of us to become active consumers. And of course, startup and innovation ecosystem is booming. Particularly, you'll see how with the advent of AI and ML, that's going to change. How many of you have asked any question in ChatGPT? All of you, right? That's the, very few of us who have not tried to, out of curiosity at least, open up a GPT and say, tell me something. Hopefully, do verify answers. It's not always right as a caution, but yeah, till you train it. So what does the India Energy Stack intend to do? We'll have the AAA strategy. We're prescribing an architecture. That means what I told you, how you and I will talk to each other, those rules. The adoption, because India is a union of states. It's not like one office sitting in Delhi decides and everything happens across the country. Multiple offices and agencies have to coordinate at the national level as well as the sub-national level. So the adoption strategies to how to enable that adoption across states, as well as what incentives and roadmaps and pathways needs to be created so that states can become digital savvy and digital ready to meet the future grids that we're going to engage with. Accelerator is to show how we can do that. Because I might have the enthusiasm, I might be passionate, but I might not know exactly how to do it. So accelerator is your sandbox where I will do a reference experiment and show this is how we can do. Say for instance, Gujarat does something, Tamil Nadu can say, Acha, Gujarat tried that, let me try and replicate it instead of starting from scratch. So we share lessons learned across each other's experiences. So that's how IES will become more of a movement and not just about prescribing some technology specifications. It's actually bringing all the ecosystem together. There are umpteen number of use cases that IES can solve. Again, as I said, it's a building blocks. That means I'm not solving a particular problem. I'm enabling the common problems that can come across. It's for all of us to collectively see how we apply and solve. So peer-to-peer energy trading can become a thing, not too much in the future, but a reality. We're already having the first accelerator going up in less than 20 days. So Pendor sir in Gujarat can sell to me in Delhi, and I can sell to Mr. Gautam also sitting in Noida maybe. Yeah, so across state lines we'll be able to trade with each other besides relying on our utility. That's not too far. How can I make my consumer experience easy? See, all of us, like I was from Hyderabad, but I live in Delhi. So each time I move states, I need to do all my paperwork again, everything again. We would all love that process to be easy, right? How can we bring in a digital transformation there so that utility to utility, you can actually see how consumer experiences can be taken along? As I said, PVs and EVs are coming, DER integration, how can make the life of regulators and system operators easy? So all of these are use cases that experts are trying to demonstrate and solve by facilitating secure, reliable data exchange. Data is the crux of everything that we're trying to solve. We started this no more than 6 months ago, so we've been trying to have a lot of engagements in the ecosystem. The whole idea of the India Energy Stack is we co-created together. It's not few of us doing it. So if any of you have ideas after you listen to the panelists in a while and you have something that you think you can contribute to, just write to us and be a part of the exercise. There are a bunch of, few hundred of us trying to solve this together. A few more are welcome. So what we're doing is we're putting out these documents in public slowly, and we will make sure that everybody's consulted while we go along. This is just all of us trying to crack our brains in action. You'll see some familiar faces, people who have made Aadhaar before, UPI before, are part of solving the problem in the energy sector. You might wonder, in dono ka kya lena dena hai? When you're building systems at scale, sometimes you have to unlearn a lot of things that we learned to be able to not over-engineer a problem. I'm learning it the hard way in this project. Otherwise, I'm a default ingrown engineer. That's in that sense. So we're learning how to build things at scale because it's literally going to unlock 250 million smart meters are going to be deployed. That means that many potential business points open up or interaction points open up. Any and all solutions can be plugged behind and in front of those. So this is just us trying to solve. Trust me, almost for 4 months, every other meeting we had, end of the meeting we would close with IES karega kya. I almost have a rap song ready for that because it's such a complex topic when we say interoperability, information exchange. 4 लोग एक दूसरे के साथ आपस में सही से नहीं बात कर पा रहे. We're talking about a billion people trying to talk to each other at electrical systems. So it's complex. And it's not like galti kar diye to fine, we'll have a blackout. If you've read the international news, Germany had a blackout a couple of days ago. San Francisco had a blackout a couple of weeks ago. Why? Because they couldn't foresee or they didn't plan better for their single points of failure. And these are international business hubs. Imagine Silicon Valley going dark for 24 hours. The loss of business, the economic loss is so high. So we need to think and plan better, and we have the tools and the know-how now. We only need to crack how. So that's things. Also, in terms of adoption, as I said, we are trying to do an assessment of how all the DISCOM readiness is. We are doing a self-assessment by the DISCOMs first. Then we're trying to see how each of them are ready to take on this digital wave. And in the following exercises, we will help them all cross the bridge wherever, because each DISCOM has something that they can showcase. Sometimes not being locked in legacy system is a boon. Need not be that it's oh, I didn't set it up, I'm behind the curve from all the utilities. It can actually be a clean slate on which you can build upon. So, that's where we're trying to work with the utilities to see how they can take on this adoption quickly. Also, there is the AI Summit coming up next month. You will see who's who of the world landing in India next year, because everybody is giving you free AI. How many of you Airtel users? Perplexity to free में मिल ही रहा है हमें. Abhi everyone else is giving, they'll nudge you whenever you try to open your browser, subscribe to Pro Plus. That's because we are a 1 billion population that can give statistical learning at such high levels nobody can fathom. No other country can offer what we can. That's why everybody's gunning for us and giving us for free. But that means when it comes to power sector, which is critical, we need to also know how to use these agents and AI more carefully. So we're coming up with a report soon on intelligence on the grid, what to be wary of, and how not to just put AI loosely anywhere and everywhere. So meaningfully use these big universes of topics called AI and machine learning. And so yes, if we, which in 6 months or so, I think we would have emerged on the bare bones. It's going to be one digital grid, just like one nation, one grid, one frequency will be one big digital grid too soon. And all of the people sitting here in the front row are enablers of that, and they'll also allude to how they think of such an interconnected system going forward. Coming to the state of Gujarat, I think GUVNL is one of the forefronts, at the forefront, leading this transformation. I think you would have heard it in all the inaugural speeches and also now at the opening, how they're leading by doing and not just talking. So I think we have gone past that era, renewables chahiye ki nahi, renewables hai, aa rahe. A lot of us are investing in EVs. PM is pushing for a lot of PVs, PM Suryagar is going on. So we are going to incorporate a lot of distributed energy resources. But the more renewables that come in, that means more variability coming into the system. That means I need to be able to coordinate better for congestion reliability, more real time. Because it's, till a few years ago, we had the luxury of planning for a day ahead. Fine, now we have to plan an hour ahead. The more closer we get, the more important and reliable it is to make sure the grids don't collapse and we get power when we want to. So what are some of the recurring pain points that you see? Curtailment. Sometimes you will have a lot of renewables, but your grid can't take. That means they'll ask you to stop producing or you plug in more storage that can come in to absorb that. But curtailment is becoming a recurring thing in high RE states. That means we're losing clean energy by not being able to absorb. Congestion in specific corridors. What does congestion mean? Similar like traffic. Like me entering into this avenue, there was a lot of traffic. The grid is no different. If 10 of us decide to plug it around one transformer, the utility has a tough problem to solve. How do I sort of plan for it? They need to see it. Then of course, ramping in and flexibility needs, because weather is changing. I think all of us are victim to this. In the last few years, climate change is real. Delhi is at 2 degrees right now. I don't think so that cold anybody has felt in a while. Plus coupled with other things, or in summers, some states are touching 50 degrees. None of us could plan. No modeling can give you that insight. We need to be able to adapt quickly. And that's why you need to be able to bring in flexibility measures. That means I should be able to respond in very near real time. In the power sector, that means in 15-minute block to block, I'll have to be able to participate. So how is Gujarat doing this? Before I do that, the concept that's being introduced in today's panel is about stadial storage. I know I've given away the definition here, or else I'd have done a quiz on what stadial storage means. But what was I telling you before? I said there's going to be a lot of renewables coming in. If the grid can't absorb, somebody needs to absorb, and that's your storage solutions. The beauty about storage is I can plug it in my house as an inverter, which all of us have done from Dada Dadi's time, to now I can plug it at the utility level, colony level, gated communities agar aap ho wahan, or it could be at the next jump of the grid, or in megawatt levels you can also plug it, be it in distribution or transmission networks. So wherever there is congestion in the grid, you plug a storage in to relieve that congestion. And what does that do? It means that I don't have to put more wires in investment. I can put more storage in to be able to act as that intermediate solution. And why? And what does stadial storage means? It means I'm not doing one-off projects. Ki Shweta here has put a project, Gautam ji there has put a project, and Joydeep has put another project. But no, all of them are coordinating so that we can, at a system level, be able to respond as a block. rather than individual. That means it requires more accurate planning where to place these different storage units. That's the very essence of today's panel discussion. Kahan pe I can put storage? How can I leverage tools like AI and ML to make that happen? So stadial storage is something that Gujarat is well poised to showcase. And why is that required? Short durations, medium and long, we need to be able to react to all of them. And that means I need better forecasting and anticipation where there will be these congestion points. So this is where AI and machine learning can come in from both your past experiences as well as plugging to weather data to be able to predict. And you need computational capability to optimize and tell you where. So that investments can come in and plug in there, because even if as engineers, we all go with the best solution, jab tak koi paisa nahi lagayega, it's all a waste, right? So we need all our ideas to be bankable. That's very important. And how is GUVNL, which is the utility in Gujarat, enabling this? They have the Urja Samvardhanam and Geo Urja, which basically lets you identify all of your nodes across Gujarat. So it's an end-to-end digital process. They have a virtual mapping of all of the substations, and it's monitored real-time through SCADA systems. And not just that, they're plugging in forecasting, looking at the load growth for the state. That means anticipating which other industries are going to increase its production so that I as a utility can plan for it. It's very important. Tomorrow if the textile industry in Gujarat decides to say, I'm going to start supplying to left, right, center in the world, it's not just textile industry's problem, it's also the utilities problem, because they need to plan for that power to be supplied. Or like for that in Rajkot, the machine industries. So all of this is sort of looped into one place. And what does that mean? You essentially have an application that gives you an indication real time. You see wherever, it's intuitive, the color coding. Wherever you see harder or darker spots, that means there's higher congestion and more loads. And what can I do as a utility? I can plan with the transmission networks and system operators on how I can relieve that load, and where else can I nudge industry to start setting up. That means I coordinate with the economic department, SEZs will come in the right places, so that Gujarat grid doesn't collapse. It also makes sure that livelihood is spread across regions. So there is more than one problem solved when you bring in something as an integrated way of planning for your grids. That's at the global level at Gujarat. At the local level, I can really plan my load at a feeder level and make sure reliability as a consumer you experience. That means I don't want power connection 4 times when I'm having a call with my teams, or if I'm someone who's running a manufacturing floor, I don't want to be interrupted, although most people have a backup, but still I don't want to be investing in it when I could put into my actual business. That's the kind of reliability you need to go to. And the Akshay Urja Setu feasibility substations and plant, they're not just looking at real time, they're planning ahead. So they have a plan up to 2030, and they're looking at where are those corridors that they can enable this future growths to come in. So this is the kind of forward thinking that we require while also planning for the problem of today, because India is growing and Viksit Bharat is a goal that's been set by the Prime Minister. So 2047, by the time we blink for engineers and planners, it will go. So we need to start acting on it now. And with this, I think I'll invite all the panelists to soon come, and we'll have a discussion on how to enable this. Thank you. Can you hear me? Yeah. Yes. Shweta, we're good to start? Okay. So I'd like to firstly thank all the panelists for making it here to the Vibrant Gujarat and to also enthusiastically participate. Just a disclaimer, we all had a good chat already before, so you'll find that enthusiasm seeping in. But also for the audience, please make notes. I'll do give some time at the end for all of you also to ask questions to them so that it's a bit more interactive. If there's any pressing, urgent clarification you would like, just raise your hand up. We'll probably give the floor. So enthusiasm is very. The way I would like to run with the panelists is we did look at the vision that both Government of India and Government of Gujarat has. We're going to how to take this vision to action. That means if Gujarat were to do a stadial storage solution, how do we go about demonstrating such a project? What would be the prerequisites that's required? So probably I'll start with you first, Professor Chirag. You have been dealing with Gujarat for many years now, and you've been planning on the systems and the grid analysis. So what would you say, or which corridors of Gujarat would be a good starting point to set up some project like this? And in your opinion, what would be some of those key performance indicators to kick off a project like this?
Thank you. So first of all, thank you very much for having me here. Thank you, Gujarat Urja Vikas Nigam Limited, for inviting each one of us. So, very thoughtful query. So when you say the corridors and when you say the region, it's not a political statement, but it's almost everywhere. All corridors are the energy corridors. So it is as simple as Gujarat Electricity Board converting into Gujarat Urja Vikas Nigam Limited. So if I just put it in a right way, and I will try to be very crisp in the answer. So when you look at the energy requirements, the one point which we are missing over here is we try to integrate AI/ML or artificial intelligence into this. But then we also have to focus on the requirement of energy through the gateway of social media and the digital technology. So if you look at it is interdependence. So if I want energy to be generated, distributed well, I need machine learning algorithms and artificial intelligence. Vis-a-vis, if I need to focus on this, AI/ML itself, the social digital media itself requires a lot of this. And that's why if you look at 2030 data, and if you consider these data centers to be the energy powerhouses, it is going to be the third largest country. So it would be US, then China, and then not India. It would be data centers, the AI data centers. So if you look at the Google search query, because the audience is heterogeneous, if you look at the Google search query, it is 0.18 ml of water required for every Google query. But when you look at the query of ChatGPT and Gemini, it is 0.32 ml of water. And such billions of queries are generated. And that is why when we focus on the corridors of power requirement, I would just like to say that the model which is very suitable for not only for Gujarat, even for India, is this: augmented intelligence, accelerated intelligence, and aggregated intelligence. So anywhere, wherever you try to put this all three together, augmentation of energy and the power distribution or the energy distribution, acceleration, because the demands are keep on increasing, and that's where we are talking about battery energy support systems and storage systems and all. So I hope I have answered your question.
Can you hear me? Yeah. I think you brought up on a very important thing about energy cannot be planned in isolation, the nexus issue with water, which I think we are still not considering very seriously. Thanks for flagging that importance. We'll have, so anyone who's using ChatGPT or any of these GPTs, casually you're borrowing water from the future you will not have water in 20 years. That we're running, it would become a reality. So we have to be cautious when we're using tools and not be careless. It's not just an energy problem, it's a water problem as well. Thanks for flagging that. And you've already given the 3 A's. I loved it: augmentation, acceleration, and aggregation. I'll come to you, Ms. Hitashri. What other services can be enabled or what services can Stagwell Storage give, and how do you see AIML being integrated in, again, narrowing down these services and to its stakeholders?
Yeah, audible? Hello. So, I mean, uh, hello. Yeah. So yes, Shweta. So I think the starting point for me can be an AI-infused hyperlocal weather forecast system, because as we heard in the inaugural function yesterday, even with the inaugural today, we are going to have more renewable energy into the grids than ever before. So the weather and climate becomes a very, very important starting point there. And then, I mean, it is not upon just the hyperlocal weather and climate, it is also how it translates in terms of energy. Say how the storages are going to affect it versus how it is, scaling up the, productions versus how it is going to affect the grids. Right, so the solution, something which is, across the scale, may it be the solar parks in the Kutch or the wind corridors in the Saurashtra or industrial hubs like Rajkot, where we are sitting in now. So, the scalable solutions which is impacting or which is taking care of hyperlocal weather and climate is what is the need of time. And yeah, so that can be a good starting point in here.
Thank you, Ms. Hitashri. I'll come to Mr. Gautam. You're working on the, let's say, at the edge of the grid, connecting a lot of us to the grid through smart meters. Tell me, what are those minimum data points that I need to be able to inform this process of where do I plug in these storage systems, and how can I leverage information from the edge?
Sure, those are them. So one of the points that India has started up a smart metering program, and I have been associated with quite long time with this program. National Smart Metering Program for 25 million meters to be 250 million meters.
I request you to keep the mic a little closer.
Okay. So 250 million meters to be replaced, 25 crores, all of them. And why it has been started up, it's not only for the health of the financial health, but also for these things when we are talking of. It is the foundation for sustainability. So that's what the whole project is about. So 2030 or 2050, when we look into the TERI reports and other reports, when we talk of net zero. And in an unconstrained environment, when net zero, that can only come when smart metering, or we have the meters where the controls can happen. So what has been looked into at the edge is the smart metering data. Then the data coming from the BESS. There are two types of BESSes, energy storage system when we talk of. This energy storage could be large ones like your hydel, storage hydels. Then you have hydrogen, which are coming in a large way for the large generations basically. When we talk of more than that, it is coming more on the battery side. Battery side are small ones, and they are normally been for the day arbitrage or the local level supplies which will be coming in. Slowly, when we have talked about the P2P and all those things can only happen when we are able to, we have talked about the duct, right? The duct belly. And that's where we need to save those points and have more energy stored up. And when you are storing it up, it's point how do you discharge it. So what is required for storing and discharging actually is to, and we have talked about a stadial data storage, which is a coordinated plan actually. And coordination will happen from different I can say storage. It's not only the bulk ones. And when we go for the behind the meter or distribution level in front of meter storages, a lot of data shall be coming from the AMI systems, the metering side. So we need to have the meter side and the SCADA side data. The two data are very, very important to see, the feeder side and the SCADA side data. And the third data which need to be there from the storage status. Actually. availability of the storage and the storage data. So these three things need to come and aggregate at one platform. And that's where we are talking about that these two data must sync up. What is the syncing requirement is basically the 15-30 minute data which need to be coming from the meter side. The similar way, the SCADA data. What is the today gap when we are trying to do such pilots, what we are finding up? The only gap between the two is that they are not synced up. We use different semantics, different data sets, but we are doing almost same thing. So what is first need is that this data must sync up first of all. Same use, same hierarchy, same feeder code, same DT code, and then another point which is important is the consumer tagging to the feeder, and then having a data set between, I can say between the SCADA data and the feeder data. If you have more than a time lag of more than 60, 65 seconds actually, when we look into that side. So that two data must sync up. And with smart metering, what is coming out is that data, all the meters are synced up all the time, most of the time, because it is two-way communication, which is all the time grids are connected. All the meters are connected to the access point, so they are within time synchronization. You will hardly find today whatever in my organization, we have almost done 1 crore plus meters in last 5 years. Some of them are ESL projects when we have done around 40 lakh meters there in last 5 years, and then we have gradually been moving to these smart metering projects. We could see that we are now been able to time sync all the endpoints, and they are thinking up, technology has advanced up enough, the communication channels are working out nicely, and the same side in the SCADA also. So now there are two things are there, that one, the consumer indexing, which is the most difficult task so far. To my understanding, last RAPDRP, last 12 years, what we are struggling, all our utilities are struggling, is to tag the customer and the feeder. DT is the secondary point, right? And then the second point is on the topology of the network. And these are the most important aspect when we talk of, while we run the AI algorithms, whatever we try to do, or ML tools actually, the 24 months data must be required, which need to be for your seasonal training of your model. How you will do it till you have 24 months of data. Certainly that data I will understand will come, because the smart metering is now progressing. In next 2 years, most of them will be over. Even in Gujarat, my organization is doing almost 80 lakh meters replacement work. We have been almost 30%, 35% we have done. Possibly in another 20 months time, we would be completing that. So that data would be available. What we need is the SCADA. And the third point which is needed is to how to take this high-speed data, coordinated workflows to come in, and that's where is needed of the DERMS actually. We need to have a platform where we integrate all of them. If we don't integrate, data would be there, but we are not able to use them, to orchestrate them, and sync them. So one is that the point which Sudha has raised about that IES. IES is certainly going to be playing a role here. So IES would be the conduit actually, I can say, where data exchange will happen in this case also. So two things we have to do, I believe, is to sync up the SCADA side and the AMI side, the data master stack and the type of data. Second point, what I do see is to do the right tagging, geotagging or whatever we try to do. Tagging at least 90-95% correct tagging of the feeder and consumer at least. Then only we can predict which feeder and how much. If you are doing a demand response also, or if you are releasing, ramping up, ramping down of your charging storage, then those are required. So that's
Yeah.
from my side. At the data side, I
Thanks.
dealt in petabytes of data with me at this
Yes.
moment, and I'm finding it's a really challenging task to use them.
Thanks for bringing out. Data in itself is not the problem. Exchange of data is the problem. Sometimes we have, but we don't. We probably have to find a way to pass it to each other to then perform intelligence over it to be able to analyze. That brings me to you, Mr. Joydeep. We're talking about a lot of actors and systems coordinating and exchanging. What should be some of these trust boundaries and safety mechanisms that need to be in play? Because if you open Netflix, there is series after series on cyber attacks and governments all hacking about it. It's so far in fiction, but it's also happening in reality. Governments don't want to probably acknowledge it openly, but it's a problem that's coming our way. How should we safeguard ourselves from cyber security risks when we're talking about a critical infrastructure like power interacting system to systems.
Thank you, Shweta. Am I audible? Yeah. Thanks. So, so before I probably answer your question, so let me say, like, so whatever this goal that we are talking about, it ultimately aims to implementing DARM system, right? Distribution Energy Resource Management System. So before I talk about DARMs, because you already talked about IES is the base for the DARMs. I would suggest that once we are actually talking about a real scenario, for a Gujarat, we want to do a pilot, let's say. So we would start with, I would not say 100% conservative, but little bit conservative way. So once I say conservative, it's not a negative way. I would say the aggression should aggression should happen incrementally. So you talked about actually control, right? Control, if I understood your question, you talked about three things. One thing is control, another thing is the trust, and the third is probably fallback. So control has to be layered. So as I can see, there are heterogeneous, professor also talked about there is a heterogeneous audience. Let me try to explain with an example. Let me try to take an example of aviation system. So let's assume that we are building a new airport with a very smart advanced AIML system. The system has very strong AML tool which can actually read your weather, read the satellite image, can have data and predict the passenger flow, the runway availability. So let's assume in that particular very advanced AIML inclusive airport, when a particular flight tries to land, okay, and probably in that airport there are hundreds of flights lands and takes off every day. The question I will ask is, who will take the final control on clearance of that flight to land? The answer is not that particular AML system, but the controlling authority, air traffic control. So let's assume this thing with this particular grid we are talking about. Here in the grid also there are three actors, three different controller. One is your grid controller, which is DISCOM or maybe SLDC, right? The second one is your second one is your particularly this aggregator, okay, who is managing this particular control system. And the third one, which is actually different storage system, here it is aeroplane, right? So this first thing is the control. We have to have a layered control. Second is trust. The trust, what we are talking about, again I will go back to this particular aviation analogy. The pilot lands the airport not because he knows that system is very smart. He knows the system from where this particular control is coming is reliable, is predictable, is auditable, right? The same thing for the grid also. So whatever we are trying to build, it has to be reliable, predictable and auditable. And the third, I think you talked about the cyber security and other perspective. It's a huge topic, but let's go to the very basics. The basics is you first of all, once you try to build a system, your system should have a mechanism so that it can fall back to its manual system. Because your data can fail, your communication can fail, your AI can fail, your cyber can fail, right? But there has to be a manual system which can actually take care of it. Because from maybe we can discuss this thing in the next round of discussion on the cyber security perspective. I think, but for the first question, if I answer you correctly, there are the three layers we have to talk about. One is control, another is the trust, and the third is your fallback. I think I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you. This mic is louder. Cool. Rudy, I'll come to you. You heard about all of the best laid plans, but ultimately, as I was mentioning also before, it needs a financier that backs idea to action. So, what do you think are the risks associated with planning with a new age of not one technology but a suite of technologies that we need to come in? What do you think will make these bankable or financeable, at least? Even I'm talking pilots. Then we'll talk about challenges when we have to scale.
Thanks, Sweta. I hope I am audible. So, yeah, I'd start by saying that we have seen the power sector evolving. Obviously, you have given a demo of IES also. So I'll say that power sector is at an inflection point. Why I am saying that? Now you see the cost of energy. The cost of energy is the latest is the solar which was there. It quoted 1.99 rupees, right? But when it is transforming to the electricity at the common household, it is coming to be at a rupees of 5 or 6 per se. So the cost of energy is coming down, whereas the cost of reliability and the cost of flexibility is increasing way ahead. We were just discussing, I was just saying the Rajasthan example. So Rajasthan has come up with a tender of 3,200 megawatt of coal-based power plant required to serve their customers for the year of 2030 and way ahead. I have looked into the resource adequacy plan and done the dispatch simulations for the Rajasthan as well as for the state of Gujarat also. I'll come on. I have seen the reason of the demand not being met for the year of 2030 and onwards. It was not because that the capacity was not there. It was because that the capacity was not getting dispatched. So it was the unmet demand was during the time of early morning hours and early evening hours, during which, so that's the reason. Means, so then I'll come back to your question. So why I'm saying this, that now the reliability is required topmost priority, and storage is one of the options. If I draw the chart, if I draw the correlations between the net load and the kind of different resources which can provide correlations with the net load, storage will stand out. Other than gas, other than hydro plants, the flexibility of storage towards the net load is the most. One is that. And if you see the scalability, the kind of ambition which we have for storage, presently we are having only 500 megawatt hour of storage. And the resource adequacy plan said that we need to reach around 300,000 megawatt hour of storage by 2030. Can you imagine what is the CAGR growth? It's 140% per year which we need to install. So the ambition is high. I'll propose couple of the solutions which I have seen by doing by hand what is required for the storage to accelerate. So first, I think that the role of renewable energy implementing agencies, they have done quite very well of bringing the cost of solar and wind down by giving sovereign bank guarantee, right? But right now I believe that this REIS can also become an off-taker, one of the contract which will make the financiers kind of ease to invest in the storage technologies. We say about value stacking quite a lot. I have heard when I started this 6 years down the line, still now I am also hearing the value stacking of storage. But you see the bid which we are giving, in the bid we only allocate capacity charges, rupees per megawatt per month for storage. There is no flexibility charges, there is no performance link incentive, nothing. So my first proposition would be the role of REIS, the evolving role of REIS, that they should offtake certain part of the storage and should do dynamic auction of those storage for flexibility with multiple load dispatch centers. One, the remaining part of the storage can go for energy arbitrage for the utilities. and then the other remaining part can help the C&I consumers. So this will help in actually developing the multiple revenue streams for storage. One is this. Second, which you asked, I think the first questions, is about the location of the storage is very vital. The substations or the node where the storage need to be installed is very vital. So for this, the load flow analysis need to be done. My second proposal would be to either to Grid India or to different load dispatch centers to do this load flow analysis and to come out with where the storage will be required and for what services. There are n number of services. If you just chat GPT or Google it, you will find thousands of services the storage can provide it. That can be ascertained by the load flow analysis. So we have LDCs, we have Grid India. They need to ascertain where the storage need to be placed and what kind of service it need to be provided. And going backward, I will design my tender document, and then in the tender document I will be doing that, what kind of performance link incentives I need to give, what kind of capacity charges I need to give, right? And the second thing, the last, maybe this would be my last submissions, that I've seen that the FDRE, it was quite a buzz last year also, firm and dispatchable renewable energy. I do think that FDRE is not the way the India should go ahead, because in FDRE what happened, we have a demand fulfillment ratio, and the demand fulfillment ratio is at around 85%. So if you have this 85% of DFR, you lead to oversize the capacity, because in one contract only you are saying that this is my load, आप अब इसको construct करो and provide the load to provide the energy to meet my load. Irrespective of doing that, you do contract of plain vanilla RE, solar, wind, and look into the aspect of where the storage need to be put, because DISCOM have a wider means they have a wider network, wider balancing areas. So they can look into the solar profile over here, wind profile over here, and can balance with the storage. Those are the proposition I would like to make.
Thanks, Ruthi. You did mention about decoupling, but integrate. It's a good way of putting it. Thanks for that. So in the interest of time, I'm going to split some of the perspectives amongst the panelists. So I'm going to ask Ms. Hitashri and Professor Chirag. Ruthi did lay out some of the blueprint of value proposition for storage, but he did touch upon the need to be able to model all of this, and we need to do this near real time because grid is a live thing. So I would like both of you to touch upon how do we make this happen more real time. I mean, it's nice to sit on a panel, we will give out all of this. How do we take it back so that we can go back to GVNL and others and say, let's do this pilot into reality. So I would like you both to
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Hello, hello.
Hello. Hello.
Okay, hello. Hello. Okay. Yeah, so Shweta, the question is like, what should we build, right, first, and how to do. So I would like to say that we need to just have, one full-fledged pilot, which is well articulating and which is considering all the uncertainties, and then that we can, map on the clear KPIs, right, which is having reliable data. And then there should be a baseline, right? So before we start, like, what is the condition? What are the kind of curtailments we are experiencing? What are the kind of, conditions there in the grid or system or at the, ground level, DISCOM level, feeder level, wherever we are dealing with. And then on top of it, what is the cost with which we are overcoming it? So let us have a baseline. Let us have clear KPIs. Let us have, reliable data sources, because data brings, the key, the heart to the modeling system. We should have, clear data available with us, reliable data availability, and then based on that, just one pilot which is scalable across the sectors, across the systems, at grid level to say, a higher level or lower level, say a feeder level, is what we need as in now. And then again, hyperlocal weather and climate plays a very key role there. Just it is not again strengthening. It is weather intelligence. It is how it translates in terms of energy production, how it hails through the storages, what is required there, where in time, and its replicability is what is important here. So I mean that's what I would like to include on your. I hope it answers.
Yeah, fine. So, if I start with, we are here to propose a model. So, when we look at proposing a model for this energy demand, we have to also apply the algorithms to analyze the demand. So, the bottom line is very simple, round the clock availability. So, what do we mean by round the clock availability of energy? So, whenever I need energy, energy should be available. But when we analyze the pan-India or pan-Gujarat demand, the energy consumption or the accelerated demand of energy consumption is more with tier 2 and tier 3 cities. And if we just move out of the paradox that the metros and the near metro cities needs the energy, in fact our calculations are wrong. So tier 2 and tier 3 cities are actually demanding a lot of energy, lot of electricity, and there's a lot of variability in terms of the load. Now when we want to propose a model, the model has to be like, if you are sitting as a CEO Urja Vikas Nigam Limited, so what you have to ensure is you have to look at the energy levels or the cycle of the energy, the generation part, the storage part and the distribution part. At the generation level, and you are not the regulator, you are the facilitator. So you have to develop the models and framework. So using the data points, using the ML algorithms, using all the available digital technology and your data, what you have to do is you have to ensure accelerated energy generation at the generation level. Then you have to see that augmented energy storage at the storage level when the peak demand is not there. And then I come back to my idea, aggregated distribution. So you have to, because we are very habituated to analyze the per house per capita load month wise. We have to move out of that, because if one major show happens in Ahmedabad, that itself energy requirement is more than 5 towns put together for the entire week. So we have to analyze these data points and then we have to aggregate this. So we have to establish a complete framework where every single household and every single individual need to be analyzed at a very different granular level. You have to understand their energy demand, and then we have to work with the model which I said, acceleration at energy at generation, augmentation at the storage, and then aggregation at the distribution level. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor, for bringing in cultural nuances, very important. Concert after concert is becoming popular in India. So are the cricket matches. That means hordes of people coming in. Utility seldom is in the picture. In the US, there was a conference and they were asking the audience, in an everyday life, which are the companies that you interface with? सब बोल दिए, taxi वाला बोल दिए, service, door delivery, सब. No, not one person said utility. That's the person who's giving you bijli, garam pani and everything. But never is the consumer aware that the utility is impacting their life. So maybe it's a good way, next time concerts happen, they should say, credit the utilities to the politicians and others. Whoever listening, we need to do this. But thanks for the pivot. I'm going to come to you, Joydeep. Professor did mention about augmentation and aggregation. New actors are coming into play. We are having virtual power plants which can act, can come together from production flexibility. You have demand response coming in. Again, this goes back to when I have to coordinate for myself, I'm conscious, but when I coordinate for a community or a group of people, how do I make sure that these safeguards again are in place? Now to double click on this safety mechanisms for that.
Yeah, Shweta. So I think, okay, today I think I'm wearing a hat of a sort of a conservative security safety officer, okay? So on the lighter note, our IT sector, generally, we the IT guys, business guys, we generally don't value much. Should not say don't value much, but generally we sort of restrict ourselves much interactions with the security guys, but they're the extreme important guys. So let me again try to take one example again for the heterogeneous nature of this particular audience. So we are actually hearing, I think Shweta started congestion, we all are talking about congestion. So what is this congestion all about, right? So let's think about a scenario. There is a water distribution system in a city, and it has a different pump storage, and it has valves, it has pipes, right? So and it has again algorithm. Okay, so whenever there is a pressure drop, so just think there is a pressure drop, there is a water requirement in particular place of a city. You assume if all pumps start reacting to it, what will happen? Your pipes will start, there will be sacking in the pipes. Your valves will be damaged. Your equipments will damage. Think of Ahmedabad. 6 p.m. there is a virtual power plant. So me and you are, let's say we all have a solar rooftop. We are building 3 to 5 kilowatt of electricity. You multiply into 1000, it will become 5 megawatt virtual power plant, right? So 6 p.m. sun drops. So there will be huge drop. You just think we have a system where your all storage can talk. So all storage start discharging. Your transformer will be disturbed. Your grid will be unstable. You have to stop it. The problem statement is to stop the congestion, to stop the oscillation, rather to restrict the oscillation. What we need to do is we have to deliberately induct delays, maybe from milliseconds to some seconds. That is number one. And your battery should be, there has to be ramp time, right? So these are the two important things. But to doing it, you have to have a system which is actually very secure. So once I say secure, so there are a lot of security protocols. The security protocols come from your standardizations. So the device, the actors who are going to play here, your inverters, your storage, your meters, everything has to be certified. So the actors who are going to play over here, it's not a voluntary thing, right? It's not a luxury because everybody is going to play with the grid. So people have to be serious. So standards should not be compromised. So there are security standards. You have to follow the security standards. So people know, right? So basic security standards you have to follow. It's a very important thing. I have seen a lot of cyber attack has happened in the power sector. 2016, there was a cyber attack in Ukraine. Almost 3.5 lakhs of consumers got disconnected for more than 48 hours. Why it happened? So there was a phishing email. So people clicked on that phishing email, and with that people got into the system, people got into the SCADA system, shut down the breakers. Okay? People send, you can electricity, send all the people again, do the on for this thing, they again shut down the power. So what I'm trying to say, so there are security standards. People will talk about, you do vulnerability assessment, you do performance testing, you do penetration testing. very important thing that is important, whoever, your actor, your participant, whoever is going to involve in this particular mission, they have to be security conscious. So I think time is very short, but still I'll just take 20 more seconds. Probably he can relate. My colleague Aditya is sitting here. He can relate. I think it's happening for some of the large companies as well. So let's say New Year. Okay, you will expect, probably you will get an email from CEO, right? The New Year email has come. So you will find a mail has come from CEO. So mail has come from CEO. You'll just click without seeing it. Probably you will miss to see that it has come from CEO@tcs.co, not tcs.com. So it's a phishing email. So people who are participating, they have to be very careful. So this cyber security alert has to be within. So I think I took much longer time, but I could not restrict. But to say that the security practice has to be within.
Yes, no, thanks for bringing, because I like what you said. Humans in the loop are important for your aeroplane thing, you said. I mean, that at the same time, humans in the loop here, also we need to factor in sometimes the stupidity or ignorance of what we might do. It happens in all companies, by the way. So, like I run a small team and I keep apparently sending emails. So when I actually send a real email, my team buzzes me on Teams and say, was it you? So, so that's, yeah. So I'll come to you, Mr. Gautam, and then to you, Rudy. But Mr. Gautam, if you can share a bit of the industry view on what Mr. Joydeep did allude upon, about how we need to make our systems sort of certified and standard ready to be able to participate in this two-way communication system, including these security norms. Where is the industry at the moment, and
when we look into today, where we are, certainly it's a journey, and the maturity need to be coming as we proceed. So what we see today, at least in the AMI environment and where we are, so it's a lot of awareness in terms of standardization, standard in terms of standardization, and then the second part in basically defining. It's important to define. So definitions have started coming in, and there are a lot of agencies. Certain is there, the power certain is there. They have defined a lot of things. On the security, on the device side security, a lot of work has happened in terms of defining how the security suits could be used up. So every layer, when we look into layer to layer security, so it's a layered security which we need to create, at least for the external threats to be deferred actually. So there were from the device end devices to the communication system, then to the IT systems, and then typically the network environment around that. So that's where we have to be. I think most of the things are coming very nicely, slowly, and as we are moving more deployments on the cloud side and in a larger cloud environment, some of the technology part has inherently come along. And as we are moving more on the IP-driven communication, point-to-point IP-driven communication, IPv6, which has come, has solved a lot of security risk when we are doing the either on the different type of communication protocols, either TCP/IP or UDP, whatever we use now. So a lot of security suits have been there. So that has been quite a, I can say, has happened. SCADA side, certainly, we need to be more now because it's opening up on the public side. Earlier, it was not known that's where it was secure. So it's moving out, and we need to be more aware on that side, typically on the public facing things. So there are public facing things which we need to look more, as more and more public, basically consumers are getting inside this data. So that part is still to be looked in. And ultimately, when you took off the storage and all those things, as he has meant, last kill switch has to be with the operator.
yes.
It has to be there. And a manual override and last kill switch.
Yeah.
Otherwise, system cannot operate like that. And last we have seen on the time of Sindoor, the last kill switch is with us. And we killed it.
So we all agree on the fallback mechanisms that need to be there in place. I'm getting signals that we need to wrap up. So I'm going to give you first, Rudy, to do the wrap up in 1 to 2 sentences. If you had to say what is that minimum criteria that's required for a concept such as stadial storage systems powered with new age technologies like AI and ML to be replicable, what's needed? You can pick any actor's perspective. So we'll just go around the panel as your closing statement.
Yeah, so what's needed, I would rather say that evolving contracts is needed. As I said, actually we need to work on the value stacking mechanism to have it on the ground and look the kind of services storage can provide it from starting from energy arbitrage to the peak saving to reliability and those all things. Secondly, I would also like to add, means in my earlier comment I have given more on the demand side, kind of the output of the storage. I would take this opportunity to say on the supply side also, on the manufacturing a bit. I do believe that the learning curve in storage is increasing immensely. We have heard, and Reliance is over here only in this, we have heard that they have invested in Faradium, right? So at this stage I do believe there's some kind of framework is required to understand from the utility side that what different technology can provide what services. We should not be only going to lithium ion. Probably we say that is 98%, but in terms of rare earth minerals, we are all importing it. But if you say about sodium ion, we have it everywhere, right? So the kind of, and also adding to it, we are seeing that the long duration energy storage is becoming kind of real. I think this week only we have seen the hours of storage has gone from 2 to 4 to 6. The latest tender we have seen the 6 hours of storage got, so I'd like to say on the demand side that one, on the technology we have to evaluate. Second part, recycling part we have to think. Quite a lot of organizations are there who are looking into the recycling aspect like Loham and other organizations. So we have to, in our designing phase also, should incorporate the recycling aspect. Yeah, thanks.
Professor Chirag, same question to you.
Shall I wrap up? Yeah, fine. So a couple of points, and I won't take much time, but the technology that we are not paying attention to, if we really want to cater to the energy need of India or say energy need of Gujarat, one technology which is very good is digital twin. So we are talking about a lot of smart meters, but do we really put smartness into the meters? We are not putting. So digital twin. So what we have to do is, at every level of the energy ecosystem, we can create digital twin of the entity across the entire spectrum, and it requires a lot of capital investment and operational expenditure. So one is digital twin. The second one is, if we really want to have the AI ML, we are not using the potential of the reasoning models. For us, AI ML is all about ChatGPT and all this, but reasoning models and agentic AI systems. So can we create agents which does a lot of decision making for you, and this entire decision making and searching and policy drafting and policy implementation, obviously human in the loop is there, but agentic AI. And the last one is, we are very, and in fact at the global level, so far as energy is concerned, and when I say energy, 57,700 tons of CO2 we are emitting, and India is third largest in this loop. If we really want to address the energy, we have to build the cyber physical systems. So digital twin, cyber physical system. And the very last point is, sir was raising very valid issues of security. And we always believe that security is all about encryption and decryption and all this. But one technology paradigm that we are not actually paying attention is blockchain, because it's a peer-to-peer system, and the entire energy grid itself is peer based. So what you can do is you can have the entire energy grid at one level, and then you can have the equivalent peer-to-peer setup, which is being driven, controlled by the blockchain technology. And when I say blockchain, it's not cryptocurrency and cyber all. When I say blockchain is a very, very robust technology paradigm. And as developers, as energies developers, or software developers, or data point analysts, we have to focus on this blockchain. So in sum up, 3 technologies: cyber physical systems, digital twins, and blockchain technology at all the ecosystem level. That's how I sum up. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think we should actually think of deterministic. We should not try initially very sophistication. So that is the important thing. So it has to be outcome based. Discoms or investor is only going to finance if there is a proper outcome. So I think the key success factor is, I think everybody is talking about. So these are the key success factor. I can again reiterate. I think that's what is coming in my mind as of now.
Yeah, so I think being last to speak on this, I think now when we are talking a lot about renewables, weather and climate intelligence has to play a very key role there. So like my wrap-up note will be weather data, which creates awareness, is the need of time. Number 1, then weather resilient intelligence, right? That creates safety and sustainability is what we need to, build. There may be lot many, this algorithmic advantages, but then what is really required is a system which is appreciated and acknowledged by the, investors and operators is what we need. So finally, just one good pilot, if we can make in this field, right? Just one step in elimination towards elimination is you are all eliminated. So just one system which is scalable, well data backed, and acknowledged by the users is what really we all are looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
So I think while all the discussions, somehow I think it's very important to talk about there has to be certain policy change from a regulator perspective. Okay. So we are actually talking about discipline, right? We are actually talking about demand response. We are actually talking about different prosumers going to the consumer's house. I will ask them, you change your inverter, you give me data. So there has to be certain incentivized. So this policy also is important, and while doing the pilot, let's find out what can be a case which can give return to the discom, at the same time incentivize to the consumers. I think that is also an important parameter.
Thank you. I think consumer centricity has to be at the heart of our planning. Thanks to all the panelists you all touched upon. Just sum up. I think Mr. Gautam, you talked about IT-OT interaction, much needed. Geo-tagging of consumers to feed a mammoth task. Probably some companies will be built and then die a slow death just to solve that problem, but much needed going forward. Data models and schemas, something that you're talking about, and integration of DERMS. I think both of you did touch upon that. Rudy, I like what you brought about recycling, flexible contracts, and technology dependency is very important. We're getting into an era of geopolitics. Every time we open news, I think it's a reminder that we need to be aware of it. Thanks for touching upon that. Professor, you did bring about the AAAs, of course, augmented acceleration and aggregation, but you also talked about technology suites that could help with that. And you emphasized to move beyond metropolitans to tier 2 and 3. I think that's a great way of saying economic centers are there, follow the economics, energy will come in to suffice for that, and not just be locked in metropolitans, which could be more residential and commercial, of course, but a lot of economic centers are distributed target them. I like that. Joydeep, you did talk about layered control, trust, and fallback, and to always have that redundancy built in, because while we are optimistic about this energy greed that we're getting into, we also need to have safeguard mechanisms. Thanks for touching upon that. And lastly, you talked about hyper local weather. I think that's going to be a game changer about all of this prediction planning that we're talking about. If you want to plug in storage, where do we put it in? It's predictability of that, which will make a lot of this resource adequacy planning that we're talking about more predictable in real time and assured, verified in a way that actually we can put money behind a lot of these solutions and hopefully keep the reliability of the grids intact. So thank you, panelists, for that wonderful round of discussions. And with that, I'll give the floor to Shweta. Yes.
Hello. Yeah. So let me quickly deliver the vote of thanks. As we come to the conclusion of this insightful session on smarter renewable integration and stadial storage solution through AI/ML need of the hour, it is my privilege to propose the vote of thanks. First and foremost, I would like to express my heartfelt thanks to our esteemed moderator for steering today's discussion and also introducing us to India Energy Stack, its vision, mission and role. Thanks to all our notable speakers and panelists for sharing their valuable insights, practical experiences and forward-looking perspectives, mainly about smart metering, exchangeability of data, layered control, pilot project, security, protocol, fallback mechanism, recycle part, and so many other things. Thanks for the very dynamic discussions. We are also thankful to all participants and delegates for their active presence and engagement, which made this session interactive and meaningful. I extend my sincere gratitude to Government of Gujarat Energy and Petrochemical Department for their visionary leadership, progressive policies and continued support in renewable energy integration progress. We are also thankful to Vibrant Gujarat Organizing Committee, Index TV for their support and facilitation. We are thankful to Marwadi University for its infrastructure and academic collaboration. We are acknowledging our gratitude to the organizing committee, coordinators and support teams who were involved directly and indirectly for successful conduct for this session. We sincerely hope that ideas and learning shared today will translate into meaningful collaborations, pilot initiatives and impactful policy actions in the near future. With this, I once again thank everyone for their participation and valuable contributions. Thank you and have a wonderful time ahead. Thanks.
So that forum is already created, and I take this opportunity that we should also have one core committee based on today's discussion, and that we can form with all your panelists there. So I will propose this to government, and we'll see in a fewer days we'll form such committee to take Gujarat and Government of India to the level of excellence. Thank you, panelists.